In this episode of the Motherhood series on the Thrive Forward podcast, I wanted to be able to honor those mamas who really love being able to achieve in the workplace and not necessarily running their own business, but working in an element of corporate America, whether it be for a big business or a small business, but you are working on a team and working to achieve things. However, that doesn't mean that you aren't striving really hard to see the other areas of your life. And maybe you are finding yourself a bit more questioning of, where am I? I feel lost between all of the responsibilities and the titles that I carry, and who is it that I really want to be again? And what does that look like? And that doesn't necessarily mean changing careers or changing job positions. It's really just digging into who we are. And I am pleased to have Nicole Fredricks Jackson, who is an attorney, a life and career coach. How do you bring those two together? Sometimes I wonder that with Nicole, but you can see how the two hearts of her world are combined. A demanding career really led her to be able to look inside of what it was that she really wanted to do. How was she prioritizing herself? It's that age-old saying of put your oxygen mask on first, right? How are we taking care of us? And as moms, we have the capacity sometimes to feel like we are the last on the list, that everything else has taken up that space. So how do we put ourselves first? And that's exactly where Nicole and I are going to dig into this conversation, especially for professional women who have these high-powered positions and are moving forward. And even those individuals, maybe you are working that crazy job, or it's 3 jobs that you're working right now and you are just trying to stay afloat. This is for you too. I hope that you will listen and learn a couple of key takeaways to put yourself first, because mama, you are so worth it. Nicole. All right. I wish we were in person, because I would love to hug you and love you up, because it has been over a year that I have seen you. Yes. I've been able to share space with you, and you are such a near and dear friend to me. I am grateful that you are going to share your knowledge with our audience today. So thank you for joining the Thrive Forward podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. This is going to be fun. And yes, I owe you that hug. So we will see each other in person, hopefully within the next month.
Yes, exactly. Well, I'm fully vaccinated now, so I'm ready. I'm ready to hug people.
So
I'm ready to hug people. I know I saw my mom and I was like, and she was like, can I hug you? And I was like, yeah, get over here. So it's been kind of a crazy year, and you and I met as I was launching Forethought and really digging into that business, and you've been such a support, and I'm so grateful for you. And today we're going to talk about all things when it comes to women and their careers and being mothers. And I couldn't think of someone more qualified to have this conversation with than you. Well, so can you share with everyone a little bit of your journey as a professional woman and now a coach for professional women?
Absolutely. So I am an attorney turned career coach is probably the most simple way to put it. Career and life coach, really, because I think they're all one. And I still am an attorney. I still work very limited hours in the corporate setting for a medical device company. But for 20 plus years, I was very focused on being a lawyer. I was a lawyer up in northern Minnesota for a while in a personal injury law firm. Ended up becoming a prosecutor, working for both the city and then eventually Dakota County down here in the Twin Cities, and did that for many, many years, and really enjoyed it and had a lot of fun. But I realized there was something new and different I wanted to do. And so I ended up taking my legal career and transitioning it into higher education, working for a law school, doing alumni relations and student life, always maintaining kind of that legal and attorney presence. I ended up pursuing my doctorate in leadership education. And in the midst of that, I realized that there was just so much more to life than just my career. And so I really started down a path. I ended up leaving education and going into the corporate setting, which was totally new to me. I like was a fish out of water. I'm like, all right, this is fun. Like, hey. And I learned so much doing that. And I still absolutely love the place that I'm doing work for. But I knew I always wanted to be a coach, right? And an area I always had a passion for was helping people really kind of become leaders in their life. And so I set out on the journey to be a career and life coach for aspiring leaders who really just want to be the leader in their own life, right? Like, I think leadership is not about title and position. Yes. It is honestly being who you are, where you are right now, and coming at it from a place of leadership. And kind of in that mode of, if I even want to get that title, like that next position up, who is that person and how can I be that person now in the role that I'm in? And then being a leader in your family and in all of the things we do. Yeah. So that's a little bit about my journey. I'm also a mom. I have a soon-to-be 9-year-old son who is teaching me all things airplanes. He clearly is on a path to be a future pilot, I think. He's obsessed. And then my husband as well. We've been married for, it's going to be 14 years this year.
Fantastic. I mean, I love your philosophy on how you look at the whole life and leadership and how we integrate all of the roles that we play in our lives and that we don't have to be defined by the titles that we carry either. Can you talk a little bit about what your experience of being an attorney in all of these different roles, how you changed that level of definition for yourself and didn't just define yourself as Nicole JD, right?
There used to be a time where, like, someone would ask you, so tell me about yourself. And I'd be like, well, I'm an attorney. And usually that would just shut down the conversation, right? Like when we lead, well, especially when you lead as an attorney, but often when we lead with what we do professionally, it's not authentic, really, like, because it's not what people really want to know about you. But I had moments in my career that were like, you're on the rise and all of a sudden something changes. And you don't expect it, right? I ended up reading the book, Who Moved My Cheese? It's the silliest book, but it still like cracks me up because it's like, right, like all of a sudden something happens. You're like, I'm on this path and something changed. And I'm like, and I would find myself in this state of like being really down on myself, like, oh, I'm not very good as a person. Mm-hmm. And I realized I was defining myself as my career and my accolades and my achievements rather than who I really was. And so it was a long journey, right? Of like realizing those pieces along the way. And I would do that. I would find myself kind of back in that a little bit as I was navigating even through the education realm, always still defining yourself as an attorney. But it was about my late 30s. And I kind of looked around and I'm like, I have all, like, I'm living the white picket fence dream, right? Like, you've got the house you want, the husband you want, the child, all of the things, right? You name it, whatever you kind of dreamed of. And I'm like, but I'm still not happy. Like, what is this thing? Like, why is that? And so I really sat down on that hard journey of figuring out, like, what is it about life? And I realized that I'm a person who wears many hats, right? Mm-hmm. So yes, I'm a career and life coach. Yes, I'm an attorney, but I'm a mom. I'm a wife, partner, spouse. I am, I'm a dog lover. I am a travel lover. I'm a coffee enthusiast as well. Although I gave up coffee a month ago. It's been really good and I've really become the tea drinker, but coffee has been off the market for me. So maybe not as much of a coffee enthusiast, but I still love the smell of it. So good coffee.
I love the smell of it, but I haven't drank coffee in 4 years.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, it's good to be off of it. Yeah, I still love the smell of coffee. So luckily my husband still drinks like really good coffee, so I can smell it and then I can get to my tea, which also smells really good.
You want to know what my cheat is? Coffee ice cream.
Ooh, that's a good one. That's a good one. I might have to try that. And so, there were so many things, right? And so they all make up who I am, right? They're all part of who I am. And so I started to embrace those pieces, and really start to think holistically about life. And as I made incremental changes in different aspects of my life, I realized that that was who I really was, and that life is hard, right? Life is hard. There's no getting around that. But there are ways to change your outlook on it and make something better for yourself, right? Because it was just I've been reading The Essentialism by Greg McKeown. Love that book. I'm actually in my third time through it. I'm going to have that book as part of a book club that I'm starting. And one of the things that really hits home for me when he talks about choices, right? And I've heard it from others, but he just put it in a way that I really understood. And it's your options might be limited, but your ability to choose is not, right? Like you may want you may want like number 5 as your option, but 5 might be off the table. So you only have these 4. You got to pick one of those 4, and you have the power to choose what's best for you at that moment. And eventually 5 might open up again and you'll get to choose it. But life is about making choices from the options that we have available to us in that moment, and really just embracing it and finding ways to love it.
Well, and I think that goes back to the aspect you mentioned, such great things of like trying not to define yourself by being an attorney, but also allowing yourself to define yourself as a mom and a dog lover and a travel, enthusiast, and all of these other aspects that make Nicole who she is. I think so many women probably struggle with really defining because we race from one thing to the next thing. And especially those individuals who are running really fast-paced careers or demanding careers. Sometimes it feels like, what is that thing that I love to do? Yeah. Right? Like what are those things that I love to do? I think if 2020 taught us anything, it's how do we dig back into what is the things that we love to do? What do you work with your clients on to help them really understand? Because I think we live in a day and age where people are like, well, if you're not happy in your 9 to 5, then just quit. Well, that's not the healthy response, nor the financially responsible option. Like, let me just say that. If you want to pursue entrepreneurial, that's fine. Have a plan. Yeah. And we've talked about this before. Neither one of us probably remember the statistic. I remember you saying it to me at one point in time. I feel like it's maybe like 90% of people don't want to pursue that career. We might not have the exact number right, but it's high. Yeah. And so how do we instead find that happiness or joy in the space that we have and align ourselves with the options that are available to us?
Yeah. Well, yes. So I think most of us may dream of being our own boss, right? Like you sit in your office and you're like, oh, that would be, wow, I could make the decisions and, I could have all this freedom, right? Being an entrepreneur is a lot of hard work, a lot of tears, a lot of work, but a lot of good as well. But 85 to 90% of us, I think, is somewhere, we want that comfort. We want that security. And the key piece is that we have to make our career just one component of our life. So I think of life, and one of the things I work with clients on a little bit is it's a power grid, right? And you plug into the power grid about 8 different aspects. 1, your relationship, whether that's a partner, a spouse, just someone you really like spending time with. Our family, extended family, our children. It's our finances is another piece. How are we feeling about our finances and where would we like to see improvements in there? It's our health and emotional well-being, our physical and emotional well-being, our spiritual well-being as well, which some people are, that's usually like, whoa, what do you mean spiritual? But spiritual can encompass so many different pieces, right? Like spirit can be prayer and meditation. It can be a connectedness with art and nature. It can be our connectedness with a specific spiritual community. Whatever you want it to be is what that means, but it's a connectedness with something. But also avocations and leisure, right? Like that's one of the things I see career people, very high achievers, take out of the mix. Like, well, I can't have avocations and leisure. I don't have time for fun, right? And fun is such an important piece. And so that's one piece of the power grid. Like usually that's where you find your joy and maybe your passion, right? Yeah. One of the things I often say is our career does not have to be our passion. It's great if it is, but for most of us, I think we were sold this thing where we were told our career needed to be our passion. And so when you're sitting there and you're trying to figure out, why am I not feeling passionate about my career? Then you start to doubt your ability to have a passion. And then you start to doubt your confidence starts to wane. And you're like, well, man, like I must not be like a great human being because I'm not passionate about this. Career serves necessity, right? It's a necessity. It's something that provides for the things we want to do for fun. It provides for our family. It provides for basic needs. And what are the other pieces? I'm trying to remember. I've got 8 of them written down. Your friendships. That was the one piece I'm missing, because you also have to focus on your friendships, like your connectedness with the community. So are you neglecting the friends that you have, or do you feel like you need more friends or new friends? And then how do you go about creating that piece? So it's the power grid. And when you think about what you're plugging into that power grid, it comes to, that's how you feel alive. That's how you begin to thrive. And if you aren't feeling alive, and you're not feeling like you're thriving, where is one area in that power grid that you could look at that you might make small incremental changes? They don't have to be life-changing pieces. It can be as simple as, I'm going to set a date with my spouse once a month because I haven't gone on a date for a year during COVID, right? Like, I think we did go back on a date. We went on a date in July and we finally had a date in February. So because it was 50 degrees here in Minnesota, so we went and sat on a patio someplace. But what are those things that you need to plug into? And that's how you begin to feel alive and thrive. And that's, life is more than our career. And ultimately, leadership is about leading in your life. And I think when you start to lead in your life, that's when you start to see your career begin to really take off. And things that you didn't expect start to happen. But it's because you're showing up differently, because you show up as a totally different human when you plug into the full power grid of life.
I could not agree more. I know that from personal experience within my own career, and I've seen it happen with other women as well. And I think it can be very overwhelming to start that process, right? I think it's easy for us to say like, yeah, just evaluate, like, where are the spaces in your life that you need to grow in? And sometimes I think it's really hard to even look at your life and say, where do I need to? I remember being at a very pivotal point in my career where I thought I needed to switch careers, right? Just needed to switch in general. And honestly, it led me to where I am right now, which is fantastic. You know, who would have thought 7 years ago that would have been a pivotal time for me? But I remember also being like, well, I'm going to give up a title if I transition. I'm going to give up this influence that I have in my company, whatever it might be. Well, people have this expectation that I'm going to be this, next leader within our business. How can I not stay in these expectations that people have for me? But what is it that we want, not the expectations of what everyone else has for us? And I think you talked about some really pivotal pieces: health, mental health, being able to take care of ourselves, our spiritual connectedness. I think starting in those spaces allows us to grow in other aspects. If we aren't feeling great about ourselves from a self-worth standpoint, then some of those other areas could just be band-aids, right? Like if we start with the friendship piece and we aren't really solidly grounded in where we are, we might use external, validation where somebody else tells us we're wonderful and we fall into that space, but we forget to tell ourselves that first. And so how do you help women get started in that space? Or what are some, ideas that you have for women to just even get started on that journey of realignment, maybe of realigning with who you are?
A lot of it comes down to the stories. So I think of it as leader, LEAD', right? So you got to listen is the L. Like you got to listen to yourself, not others, but start to kind of get quiet and start to really kind of see what it is you enjoy, what it is you don't enjoy. So when I was really struggling in my career, towards the end, where I did just want to go, right? I'd wanted to go for a while, but I realized I had to get kind of quiet and start to listen to what I really needed. And I started to make some of those incremental changes while I was there in the position, because I knew that if I left, nothing was going to change for me, right? Like I can jump into the next thing, but if I'm not grounded in kind of knowing who I am and what I need right now, that next job is still going to be a total failure.
Right.
Not that anything was ever a failure, because it wasn't. Like I kept going up and achieving and doing all the things. But you still feel internally like you're failing somehow. And it was because I wasn't like listening to myself and figuring out like life
right
a bit more. And so you get quiet and you listen. And the E is then really starting to envision, right? Like just thinking, like giving yourself permission to dream a little bit and envision what it is you actually what you want. But stop listening to other people about what you want, right? Mm-hmm. Envisioning what you want doesn't have to be, we're always sold this thing on social media that the only thing we can envision is something really big and huge and becoming a millionaire or, having the perfect body or whatever, right? Like,
or the perfect life or the perfect house or the perfect
mom or, all of these things. And I don't remember who said it. It's one of those phrases you hear often. It's about progress, not perfection. Mm-hmm. Right. So where do you want to progress to? Like, right. Do you want to be a better mom? What does that look like for you? Okay. If that's what you want, that's a great goal. Mm-hmm. If you want to be a great attorney or a great coach or a great financial advisor, right? You can still do that as well, right? There's no boundaries on what it is. It's what you want and what you really need. And so then it becomes A for assess. And so many people get so into, I have to take assessments. And I have nothing against assessments, right? They all provide wonderful pieces, but assessment to me is my own assessment, right? Like really figuring out those pieces, like that power grid, like looking at kind of what is going well.
Yeah.
What maybe could use a little bit more? Like, how do I feel? Like if I'm not feeling great in my relationship, what is it about my relationship that I'm not feeling great about right now? Mm-hmm. Is it that we're not spending enough time together? Is it that we're not traveling together? What is it? And then it becomes D, discern. Sorry, I had to think about using that information. You start to discern and then become reflective. Really the R is reflective, because I use what's known as reflective inquiry, right? Like I don't have a specific method where I come in and I'm like, okay, you got to go through these 5 things and this is how we'll know exactly where you are. Mm-hmm. It becomes reflecting on what your story is. Like, what is the story I'm telling myself right now that's keeping me from going forward? And so much of that was through the doctoral program where we did a ton. At first I didn't fully understand it, right? Like, why is all this reflection part of leadership? Because it was new to me, right? It was a totally different, like, it was not like law school at all.
Right.
And it became this reflective process and kind of a narrative, like, what's my story? What am I, and what do I want my story to continue to grow into? And being very reflective on that piece. And then obviously you got to take action. You can do all the reflection and all the assessment that you want, but at the end of the day, like, what's one small incremental change? Because I think of goal setting as part of the whole piece, right? Mm-hmm. Think big, that's great, right? Have audacious goals. But the only way to get to that audacious goal of what you want is to do micro actions, right? Like, you take little steps. And take that little step for a month, take that little step for a quarter, take that little step for a year, whatever it takes to have it become ingrained in you. And then it becomes part of your life. And then you see, you look back and you're like, wow, that's some progress. And I say that from experience, right? So I think of when I first kind of started on that personal journey to really figure out, like, how am I going to make this career change? Like, what do I really want to do? And I got really serious about meditation and getting up early. I was not an early person, right? Like, I like to sleep in, but I realized that I was not showing up as a very good mom because every day I'd wake up at the same time as my son and I have no time for myself. And I'd become irritated about that. Like, right. Like, that became kind of a bone of contention for me. But that's not who I wanted to be. And so I'm like, all right, I'm going to give this whole, like, get up at, in my case, it had to be 4:30 a.m. because he's an early riser. He's a 6 a.m. riser, still is. I'm like, is this going to change in his teens? What's going to happen? Like, yeah. Like, dude, sleep, like, please. But I got up and I walked down to the couch every day and I just sat there quietly for 5 minutes. And then I read, and I also got my cup of coffee at that time because I was very into coffee. And I just...
Well, you're getting up at 4:30 in the morning.
Yeah,
I feel like you kind of have to be.
Yeah. But I meditated first, drank the coffee and read. And it changed how I was showing up with my son and in my family and in my career ultimately. But that was just a small incremental change that I had to make, but it became life-changing because it gave me the space to start to dream a little bit about what it was that I needed. So I had that time to read, and I had time to kind of think about and jot down, like, notes about, okay, how do I want to show up today? What is it I want for this week? What's my goal this week? What's my priority? And being able to do that. And it sounds like such a silly process, but when I look back, it's 4 years, and that changed life. Like, that changed the trajectory for everything. And it allowed me more space to do other things.
Well, I think we oftentimes put so many other people before our own needs, and instead being able to take the time that we deserve to have to reset so that we can actually, it's that whole put your oxygen mask on first before others. And I had a very similar journey when I was, after Savannah, my youngest, was born. I dealt with postpartum anxiety pretty bad. And I knew in order to reset, I had to take some sort of, I don't know if control is the right aspect of my life, but I had to reset. I had to really define who I was. I had 2 babies back to back, and I had a miscarriage in between. And my dad had been diagnosed with early onset dementia, and my grandfather, who was like my other father, had passed away. So I had all of these, like, really earth-shattering things that had happened to me, and rightfully so was battling anxiety. And I knew that I could reset. I had the power to be able to reset. And so mine started actually with yoga in the morning, and getting up even just a half hour before my kids and doing 20 to 30 minutes of yoga. Yeah. And I've allowed myself over the last almost 7 years to really redefine what that looks like, depending on the period of life too. I think that it's so important that, what worked for us at one point in time doesn't mean that, to your point, we can't reassess and decide, is that still what's working for us? And, maybe we need to do different things. Then it became, I was going to work out after work so that I could have that break between my work day and when I came back home and had to enter into spaces. And so how did I start to have the conversation with my partner? Now, both of us are married, so we have the privilege of having a partner, and not every mom has that. But I would say, there are other resources and ways that you can look at your life too. What can you do differently? One of my girlfriends says, she's like, I work out not traditionally. I work out when I'm putting something in the microwave and I'm waiting for it to warm up. I do squats or push-ups. When I am brushing my teeth, I do something then. Like she picks all of these odd times to be able to do different things in her life. And I think that that's wonderful, because I've always said to her, I'm like, how do you stay so in shape? Like, I work out every day. And you're like, and she's like, I don't know. I was like, you must be going to the microwave a lot then. Maybe it's the coffee. I don't know.
Maybe. We all have different chapters in our life, right? And we hit them, and things don't always have to look the same, right? You're right, because it is like, it's a constant, I'm ever changing, right? Like, there are pieces that like I look at and like, I need to reevaluate that. That worked really well, but it doesn't seem to be working right now. And you have to give yourself permission to do that, right? Like, I think that's one of the biggest pieces as women, is giving ourselves permission, because no one else is going to give it to us, right? Like, if you're looking for me to say, yes, you can, then your permission is granted. Right now, you have the permission to go and change something that you need to change. And sometimes it's about looking at the different avenues. So while I was married, still am, same person, I was telling myself the story that we couldn't do date night because he was reserved about like finding a sitter and all of that. And so I'm like, well, he's not going to want to like get a sitter, and, so we just won't do this. And really I had to change that story to, I'm going to take control of this, and I'm going to just find the sitter and set it up and set up the date night. And it helps, like, because you give yourself permission to do it, because you realize you're telling yourself a story that it's someone else making the decision for you. Like, I was telling myself that my husband was the one making that decision for us. So just wasn't going to happen. But when I gave myself permission to make the decision for myself, it helped immensely, like in being able to go and actually do something that was not just focused on our son. And I love him dearly, my son.
Of course you do.
Right? But you got to go out once in a while and go see something other than, a kid's show. At the time, I probably wasn't doing cartoons, but, then this whole pandemic thing hit, and well, all of the training wheels went off, and, we went for, Disney. I call Disney Plus, I think has been my nanny for the year, during those moments when you needed to get something done. So, and he's still alive and he's thriving.
Yeah, there should be no guilt associated. I think that a lot of times for working moms too, I know I remember one time I had one of my girlfriends from work over, and she was coming by after the office, and we hadn't seen each other, and we were like gonna, like, it was a beauty counter thing. Like, I was gonna, like, we were gonna play with makeup and drink wine on my patio, and it was a beautiful day. And she came over, and both of us were in these leadership positions and sitting in boardrooms in different sides of the company, never in the same one together, always usually the only woman. And she comes in, and I had laundry that had not been folded in laundry baskets sitting in the living room. Because for me, I shouldn't say I've never been, but I've really worked hard to not be the woman whose house is completely put together, because I have kids living in it. And so she literally stops in the doorway, and she's like, oh my God, thank you. And I was like, for what? You're welcome. Come on over. Here's a glass of wine. Like, what's going on? And she was like, you have laundry in your living room. that means so much to me. And, and I was like, okay, I'm glad my laundry in the living room is changing your life. I didn't have time to fold it. I don't care if my kids pull their laundry out of a wrinkled pile of stuff. Now we teach our kids, now our kids are a little bit older. This was 4 or 5 years ago. Now our kids, we're teaching them how to fold laundry, how to put the dishes away. Like, they're old enough to take a toy out. They're old enough to put stuff away, is kind of how I've always looked at it in my house. So that element of coming across as this like perfect entity that we have to, I think sometimes we're our own worst enemies, that we have to do all of these things. We own these like high-powered careers, and so many women are entering into that workspace of leading teams and being in executive roles. How do you then still balance all of the societal norms of being a mom? So the scheduling, the dinner, the laundry, the grocery shopping, the kids' activities, like all of those things. And for those women who do have partners, how do you delegate to that space? Mm-hmm. And I add, how are you managing your finances in that picture? Because that's one piece I don't think you should delegate. But that's my obviously personal opinion as a financial planner. That being said, I think there's just all of this overwhelm of responsibility in trying to make it look like everything is together, when in reality, you don't have to. You don't have to have it all together. Who said you did?
We're so allowed to have, like, not be perfect, right? Like, yeah. I'm not perfect. I'll never profess to be perfect. I try very hard. There's no doubt about it. And it's kind of like I tell my son, right? He gets really wrapped up sometimes in like, oh, I got one wrong. And I'm like, yeah. Did you try? Did you do your best? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Then I'm very proud of you. If you did your best, like if you put the effort in and you did your best, give yourself credit, right? And sometimes our best doesn't look like a perfectly neat house. My best might be I went and played basketball with my son outside. And so I didn't, take time to clean the house before you were coming over. And I think we just have to honor it. It kind of even goes back to some of the things I've had to remind myself in careers, and I remind clients of in careers, is you don't need to know everything, right? It's okay to have questions or to ask a question, right? Yeah, there are ways to ask them the best, right? Like, it's not about just being your authentic self and being like, I don't know anything, I quit. Yeah. But it's about asking the right questions in ways that can be helpful. And even sometimes that's in prioritization. I see that with especially a lot of women, like having trouble, like, and men too. I shouldn't just say because I work with both men and women as clients, but mostly women. And we get so many things thrown our way, and we really have trouble like saying no. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying no is the right answer all the time, but sometimes it's a matter of having a conversation with the person who's asking you to do something. Especially like with a boss, right? Having a list of your priorities, the projects that you're working on, or even in your calendar, and saying, I think this sounds like a wonderful project. Like, I'd love to take this piece on too. But can we look at this together, right? Like, here's the list of things I'm working on right now, and this is what the calendar looks like. Mm-hmm. How should this overlay into here, right? Like, is there a project that I should now move into like non-priority and put this priority in? And sometimes that conversation is going to be like, yeah, you no longer need to work on, that project. Let's put this project in there. We'll set this one on the side, and let's, free up that space to be able to work. Or maybe it is, oh my gosh, yeah, no, everything you're working on right now, keep going. You're doing great work. Like, we'll hold this project a little bit longer. And so sometimes we just have to be willing to not know, but also to ask the questions that can help serve us. And sometimes that's what coaching is about, is helping us understand and identify what are the questions I still have remaining? What do I need answers to? And how do I go about getting those answers, right? And it's not me necessarily telling you how to do those things, but helping you identify what it is what are the missing pieces that you're trying to plug in. And how do you do that? And sometimes it just takes someone helping you along that path to identify, like, it's okay. Like, your house can be a mess. Like, it doesn't have to be perfect. Yes, you do your best to keep it up, right? But I still end up with stacks of books here and there. And, Legos are still, we're still teaching how to put away Legos.
Yep.
I'm gonna have to admit I have yet to be a real success on that area.
Don't worry, I don't have any grand tips for you on that one either.
Yeah. But we at least created a room, and they're supposed to stay in that room, but they always come out. But at least we have the one room that is basically, if I need to, I'll shut the door. It's the Lego room.
Yeah.
And occasionally you'll see pictures of it on social media. I'd be like, so this is how it's turned out right now. Just so you know.
And that real aspect, I think, is so important to bring that element of reality, that not everything is what it is to be. I mean, I remember rushing into meetings and having bags over my shoulders, and people asking me, like, why were you late? And I was like, I don't know. I had a baby on my boob, and I had to drop one off at daycare, and I barely got my lunch, and I don't even know if my pants are on the right way. Like, I think that sometimes we're just flying, that how do we pause, and instead of listening, like you said, to all of the other noise and all of the other expectations, but really reprioritize what's important for ourselves by listening. You've provided such a great amount of knowledge and resource today in, I think, a very approachable manner that is easy to kind of lean into a little bit more for individuals. Is there anything that you would like, last words of wisdom that you would like to provide our audience?
My biggest piece is that it's never too late to begin. I always use the term, it's never too late to feel alive and thrive. But really that boils down to, no matter what age or stage you are in your, life or career, you can always start again, or not necessarily, it's not starting again, but you can start to grow again, right? It's never too late to start to go down a path. And I would love, so one of the things that I'm doing is I've got a leader book club, which is just about personal development. If anyone's interested, I'd welcome the opportunity to talk about it. It's on my website at nicolefj.com. But one of the things that really is that means a lot to me is personal development is the new professional development, because I think when you take personal development seriously, your professional development skyrockets, because people start to see you differently.
You step into who you are, so then you're living in a space where you don't feel like you're having a mask on, or you're an outsider pursuing something that maybe isn't true to what it is that you want.
Right. So I think it's all about being true to who you are, with the caveat that sometimes being true to who we are does come with some shape to it within society, right? Like, I'd love to say you can always be perfectly who you are, but I think you need to be authentic to who you are. And if something's not the right fit for you and you can't be authentic, it's time to reevaluate it and decide if you're ready. And sometimes it's when you're ready that, you can finally lean in fully to that authenticity.
Yes. Well, thank you, Nicole, for sharing everything. You mentioned your website. Where else can everyone hang out with you to find out more about what it is that you do, or follow along with your journey and resources?
On LinkedIn and Instagram, it's Nicole Fredricks Jackson. That's where you'll find me. And it's Nicole, no H, Fredricks, no extra E in the middle, just Fredricks Jackson. So Nicole Fredricks Jackson. I made the website a lot easier, Nicole FJ. You'll also find little buttons to click on to find me there. And on LinkedIn, or on Facebook, I believe it's the same. I should have probably looked at that ahead of time.
I think you're right.
Sure it's at Nicole Fredricks Jackson as well. So I'm pretty sure I was consistent all over the place, but Facebook is always one of those trickier places for me to figure out.
Yeah, well, we'll link them all for you too.
Sounds good.
Thank you so much for joining us, Nicole.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure. It was great to see you.